All right, we are live on LinkedIn and on YouTube. Hello, everybody, and thank you so much for joining. Kate Strachny here from Story by Data. We have a special treat for you today because you're going to hear from about 17 leaders in the knowledge graph space. Yes, about 17, and we're going to try to keep this in a session to about an hour. We may or may not go over, but we'll definitely be around for questions and answers towards the end. I'm actually going to bring in the two co-founders of the Knowledge Graph Conference, Thomas and Francois. So join me in the stream, you guys. Hello. How's it going?
Hey, Kate. Good afternoon.
Hey,
Good
Kate,
afternoon.
how are you?
I'm super excited about this. I've never done a live stream with 17 speakers in 1 hour. So this is going to be lightning round speed. But Thomas, maybe we can get started with you and just let us know, why should people attend the Knowledge Graph Conference that's coming up in early May?
Thanks, Kate. So the Knowledge Graph Conference convenes experts who are driving adoption of this really interesting technology across a number of industries. So we have leaders from industries ranging from financial services to healthcare, supply chain, and e-commerce. These innovators are building use cases, for example, social graphs in finance, recommender systems in e-commerce. They're addressing questions in healthcare around drug discovery, a very relevant topic right now. And our industry range is quite diverse. We have speakers from industries such as real estate and law firms. The event runs over 4 days, starting on the 4th and 5th of May, where we kick off with 9 workshops and tutorials. So if you are curious about knowledge graphs, what they are, if you're interested to learn how to build a knowledge graph, we have 2 fantastic workshops, which are tutorials, which you'll hear more about later in this talk. We also have 2 very interesting workshops, one on healthcare, personal health knowledge graphs, and another on the UN Sustainability Goals, Knowledge Graphs for Social Good, sponsored by Lambert, Hogenhout at the UN and Accenture, where they're leveraging open data sets to see how we can better measure progress towards the UN SDGs, 19 grand goals covering everything from education to poverty to climate to gender equality. The centerpiece of the event is a 2-day single-track conference, May 6th and 7th, 30 lightning talks, 20-minute talks. So a feature of our event, similar to your LinkedIn Live today, is it's very fast-paced, high energy. This year, we're really excited by the fact that we're doing it online. This will allow our attendees to engage with our speakers over video and chat through Ask Me Anything sessions. And finally, just to wrap up, we're also adding in this year a very exciting event where we're matching startups building in knowledge graphs with investors. We're launching an open source enterprise knowledge graph foundation. Mike Etkin will join us later to talk about that. And we have a very interesting panel on frontiers of data intelligence, talking about ethics and AI. So just to summarize, if you're new to knowledge graphs, if you're curious about the space, or if you're building in the space and you want to interact with the leading experts in the world, or if you're interested in some of the research or building a startup, the Knowledge Graph Conference, May 4th to 7th, is the place to be, and sign up at knowledgegraph.tech.
Great. Thank you so much, Thomas. And then now I'd like to hear from Francois. How did this event come about? And where did you guys get the idea to even start something like this?
That's a great question, Kate. Thank you. It's so I've been working in that field for years and years. I started working on the graph of the French dictionary in 2002, if my memory is correct. So almost 20 years of working in that field and seeing it evolving as an academic field. And different names came, semantic web and linked data, and then seeing more and more industry adoption. I thought, so it was a couple of years ago at the International Semantic Web Conference in Monterey that the idea came, and I thought it was the time to really take that field out of the academia because it was really mature to become, to show that industry is using this technology. It's not just some topic that is used by researchers, but it's now becoming a major technology. And so loving the topic, I wanted to support it through the community. And that's what we're building with the Knowledge Graph Conference.
Awesome. And I think before we start, inviting all the speakers and hearing from what they have to say, can we just do a baseline discussion on what exactly is a knowledge graph for those that are not familiar with it?
That is a great question. And you know what? This is a question that is being discussed all the time. Even like a couple days ago on Twitter, some of the active members in the community were again asking the question and comparing all the different subdomains of the field. But basically, if we want to, quickly give some idea about what are knowledge graph, what are they useful for, I think the major point there is really integration, bringing all the data together, providing a unique reference source for your data in your organization, especially. And knowledge graphs are one of the necessary branch of AI, such as we have memory and we use that memory to reason about the world. Knowledge graph kind of play that role in artificial intelligence. They bring all the data, all the information together in a way that's nicely accessible, very clean, high quality. And so that this data can be used, and now AI can learn using this data, and then the output of AI can also enrich the knowledge graphs. So that's for a very quick definition, but I'm sure if you attend the conference, you will learn a lot more about all the details and all the application areas as Thomas described.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. And actually, you can take 10% off the conference. We do have if you see the ticker on the bottom, we have a code you can use. It's a LinkedIn Live special where you can take 10% off if you decide to go ahead and join the conference. It's KGC LinkedIn Live. So Thomas, Francois, thank you. I know you guys are going to stick around for the end, but I'm going to remove you from the stream and actually bring on our first speaker, Juan Sequeda from Data.World. But thank you guys for that.
Before you remove me, Kate,
yes.
I want to say Juan has been an active player since the beginning, a big supporter of the conference, is part of the program committee of the conference, so helped us build that wonderful program that we have this year. So thanks, Juan.
Great, thank you. Okay, I'm gonna bring him in. And those that have tuned in live, I just want to let you know that if you ever had a question about knowledge graphs, I literally cannot think of a better time to go ahead and ask them in the comments below, because we really have all the leaders in the knowledge graph space. And yeah, definitely put your comments, your questions in the comments, and we'll try to address as many as we can. And now, without further ado, we've got Juan Sequeda from Data.World. Hello.
Hey, Kate, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. I love your shirt with the little owl, your Data.World shirt.
Yeah, so I just said hello, Kate, and then my Siri just came up on my so talk about voice recognition here. So
right. So I know your topic for the conference is designing and building enterprise knowledge graphs from relational databases. And I just wanted to chat a bit about that, and in a nutshell, how do you actually create a knowledge graph?
Yeah. So first of all, just to kind of complement what Francois was saying, for a knowledge graph is really you're enabled to integrate knowledge and data at scale, right? Where you really want to be able to create, represent these real world concepts and relationships as first-class citizens, and this is all represented in the form of a graph. So usually people will create knowledge graphs from all different types of sources. Let it be unstructured sources like text, documents, or from structured sources like relational databases. And a large of the large companies, the Googles of the world, right? Their goal is to be able to automatically create knowledge graphs, usually from more unstructured sources, because they're crawling the web, because they're taking data from Wikipedia and stuff, and they're using a lot of automated techniques like from NLP techniques and machine learning techniques. So that's one focus of it. My particular focus, and which is the focus of the tutorial, is to be able to create these knowledge graphs from relational databases. And specifically, we're talking about like the enterprise setting. So in an enterprise, you have really large, complex databases, right? We're talking about thousands of tables and tens of thousands of attributes. And this is just one database. So our question is, how do we extract all that knowledge that's embedded in that complexity of data? So it's really a combination of understanding who are the people who need to be involved, what are the type of technology out there, and what are the processes that you need to be able to need to be involved. So our experience over many, many years creating knowledge graphs from relational databases, we've come up with different types of tools, different types of methodologies, and identify who are the key players about that. So that's what we're going to be presenting in this tutorial.
Great. And, I know you've been advocating for a new role called the knowledge scientist. Can you talk a little bit about what that role would entail?
Yeah, so as I just mentioned, to create knowledge graphs, there's these kind of going to have people, the process, and the tools. And part of the people is this new role that we've identified, which is the knowledge scientist. The knowledge scientist is really it's a person who builds the bridges between the business needs and actually the data. They're that bridge between the producers of data, like data engineers and data stewards, and the consumers of data, like data analysts and data scientists. So a knowledge scientist is a person, that role, that can work with the consumers to help model the business, understand what things mean, because people will use one word to mean three different things, or three different words to mean the same thing. And then they'll work with the producers of data to figure out where this is actually in the data. So they're basically people persons with like business folks, and they're geeks with the IT folks. And you can see the role of a knowledge scientist just like a product manager. And they're the ones who should be responsible for the data. So we're really pushing this new role. And if you're for more questions, if you're more information, actually, we just launched the site today. You should take a look at knowledgescientist.org for more information.
Knowledgescientist.org. Great. I'll put that in the comments so people can go ahead. I'll put the link in there. Knowledgescientist.org. Cool. Well, Juan, thank you so much. Folks, if you're interested in joining that session, you can, sign up for the Knowledge Graph conference and hear more information about Juan Sequeda's work. So thank you so much, Juan. I'm going to go ahead and continue spinning the wheel and bring on our next speaker. So thank you so much. All right. Next up, we've got Lambert Hogenhout from the UN, and I'm really excited to bring you in. I'm going to, without further ado, add you to the stream. I'm not sure. I think you might be on mute, but hello, Lambert. How's it going?
Hi, Kate. Yeah, thanks.
I know you're going to be talking about knowledge graphs for social good, best practices, methods, challenges, and the Sustainable Development Goals, the SDGs, as you refer to them. So, wanted to ask, can you tell us a little bit about what are the SDGs and why are they important?
Oh, yes. Well, the SDGs were decided in 2015 by people all around the world. And that's what makes them so exciting, that this is the first time in history that people around the world, from academia, from religious leaders, governments, and common people, all came together and tried to decide what is wrong with the world. What are the most important things to be fixed? Big things like poverty and health and gender equality and the oceans, but then underneath that, real concrete goals. So it's not just an average to-do list. This is really the important stuff.
Right. And then, so I wanted to ask, I know that we're on the topic of knowledge graphs. So why are knowledge graphs a useful way to basically store the SDGs and Sustainable Development Goals?
Right. So the tricky thing with the SDGs is that they're all related. If you want to get people out of poverty, education is a good point to start, right? And with that education, you probably also end up empowering women. So you're addressing gender equality. So there you've already got three topics that are connected. And understanding these connections is really useful, because that way we can create programs and actions that are much more coherent and much more effective. Now, knowledge graphs are excellent at documenting these relations. That's what knowledge graphs are all about. So the reason for us to launch a workshop in this conference is to see if we can capture knowledge about the SDGs in a knowledge graph, and thereby understanding the relations between them.
Okay, yeah, thank you. And so I think people should definitely join and learn more. I think this is a topic that's extremely interesting, especially for me, because I am all about sustainable goals. And I mean, this is something that's truly changing lives, right? So thank you so much for providing the sneak preview of what you're going to talk about at the Knowledge Graph conference. And, if people have questions for Lambert, definitely go ahead on the LinkedIn live chat and ask away. You can tag him. I'll actually tag him in the comments so you'll know who to direct your questions to.
Excellent. Thank you, Kate.
All right. Thank you. Okay. So before I bring in the next speaker, I'm just going to quickly check to see if there are any comments or questions that I see a couple of questions that were addressed for Juan. A few people are joining. They're from Toronto, Peru, New York. And people are thanking for the fantastic discussion on technology. So thank you guys for joining. I'm going to go ahead and bring in the next speaker, Dr. Ching Lin, the CEO of Graphen, up to the stage. Hello.
Hi, Kate.
Hello, how's it going?
I'm good. Hi.
You're doing well? Okay, great. So I know this is a kind of fast-paced, so we have about 2-3 minutes to cover your topic here. But I do want to know, what topic are you covering in the Knowledge Graph conference? What is your focus area?
So I'm going to talk about the COVID-19 evolution graph, and that is a major reason why we are here using the TEL conference.
Great. And can you talk a little bit about how do you create an evolution graph of COVID-19?
So about since February, we've been monitoring the worldwide whole genome sequencing of the COVID-19 coronaviruses. And then we actually find out the relationship and then find out which one was evolved from which one. So therefore, we were able to create the whole graph for the viruses that are kind of circulating worldwide at this moment.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then, yeah, I could see that. Yeah.
So this is actually a knowledge graph for the coronaviruses.
Oh, wow, that's interesting. Is there a place where people can go and take a look at that?
It's actually on our website, www.graphen.ai/covid.html.
Okay, so graphen.ai, got it. And maybe when we're done with the session, if you can add that link to the LinkedIn comments for people who want to go ahead and check that out, I think that would be useful. And then another question I had for you was, what type of knowledge do we get from these graphs that you just showed us?
So I think the very key part is that we want to see how these viruses they mutated, because right now, for example, we had more than 10,000 different whole genome sequencing viruses, and from these 10,000, there were actually more than 5,000 different type of viruses right now at this moment. So we need to figure out the mutations, and so therefore we can make sure that the machines and also the drugs that are being developed, they can really catch up with these mutations. Otherwise, if it mutates too much, then these machines won't be useful.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. Well, thank you so much. People go to Graphen. You said graphen.ai to learn more. Yep, go to graphen.ai to learn more. And if you have questions for Dr. Ching Lin, definitely reach out on LinkedIn or ask the questions during the live stream, and we're going to go ahead and try to address as many as we can. But thank you, Doctor, for your time. We will go ahead and bring in the next speaker at this moment.
Okay, thank you, Kate.
Thank you. Okay, let's see. I'm going to quickly, as I typically do, check up on the comments to see if there are any questions that have come through. There was a question of Francois, where are you situated? So I'm not sure, Francois, if you can get to that on LinkedIn and respond. Mindy said she's going to check that out. It's so relevant. Thank you. And I see we have the link for the Graphen COVID knowledge graph that was just shared with us. So thanks for sharing that link. Okay, let's see. And Juan Escobar is sharing some info on DiffPlot's knowledge graphs there as well. Thank you, Juan. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and bring in the next speaker. Just want to make sure I've got the right. Let's go ahead and bring in Michael Atkin. We're going to talk about Enterprise Knowledge Graph Foundations and the launch of global coordination mechanisms. So, Michael, hello.
Hello,
nice
Kate.
to have you in here.
How are you?
I am doing great. How are you?
I'm good.
So, tell us a little bit about yourself, about EKG.
Yeah. So we're using this conference as a starting point for introducing the new Enterprise Knowledge Graph Foundation to the semantic community. So let me give you some background, maybe set things into perspective.
Okay.
I personally have been an activist in data management way back since 1985. Right, so I started with the publishers, the owners of intellectual property, about the business of data management and the management of the meaning of data, right? So my role there was the activist about meaning.
Mm-hmm.
Then I was recruited to form the Enterprise Data Management Council, like the EDM Council. And those are all the big banks dealing about the problems of data harmonization and all the data fallout from the 2008 financial crisis.
Were you
That's
involved
when
in
we
the
discovered-
LEI or?
Yeah, that's where LEI came out of that problem
Mhm.
that showed up. So that's where we discovered the importance of governance. And that's where the role of the CDO in the financial industry kind of grew, right? So my activist role was governance. And all of that was about framing the data management challenge, right? However, governance alone doesn't fix the problem of IT fragmentation. It doesn't solve the problem of transformed data meaning, right? And it's clear to me that we weren't going to solve it by trying to reconcile millions of tables or all with conflicting column names and held together by foreign keys and driven by proprietary data models, et cetera, right? So that brought me to the world of semantic technology, right? So the big awakening for me is I ran an ontology, a financial industry business ontology, where I discovered the importance of data tagging and the role of standards like RDF and OWL. And that lesson, that those web standards and the capabilities they bring, right, resolvable identity and property resolution and mathematical quality control and concept reuse, they do solve the problem, right? You know, this is the challenge of flexible analysis for, you know, for putting data to work can be addressed, right? And that brings us to the EKG Foundation. So just like the EDM Council helped organize the community around core data management, we're doing the same thing now around the next wave and semantic technology, right? So a bunch of the FIBO leaders and I got together, focusing on building the marketplace, helping to adopt best practice, getting the community organized, and sharing what we've learned about collaborative development. So that's the starting point. The foundation's now a legal entity, right? It's a profit, you know, we're publishing the agenda and the terms of reference. Website's on its way up. So we're doing a lot of work on measurement criteria and maturity models and collaborative publishing and business case development. And we're going to make all that available to the industry and let others contribute to that process. We're launching it at the conference on May 5th.
Awesome. May 5th, guys. All right. So last question I had for you was, where can people go to learn more about the work you're doing?
Well, it'll be ekgf.org.
Okay.
But I'm still building that site, so it'll be available in a week or so.
Okay, great.
But in the meantime, they could do it to mike.atkin@agnos.ai, and I'll put that in your chat board.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. And thank you for joining the LinkedIn live stream and giving us a little sneak preview.
Yeah, Kate, thank you very much.
All right. Have a good rest of your day. Okie dokie. So the next person we're going to hear from is Ron Beckerman. And like I mentioned, if you're just tuning in, this is the most opportune time to ask any questions on knowledge graphs, because we've got all the experts here and they're ready and willing to, you know, stick around and answer your questions on LinkedIn. So Ron Beckerman, I'm going to go ahead and bring you onto the stage. Let's see. There you are. Sorry, there's a
Hi, Kate.
Hello, Ron. How's it going?
Hi. Good.
All right. So you're with is it Cherry Inc? Am I saying that right?
Cherry. Just
Cherry.
like the
Cherry. How did that come about?
Oh yeah, it is. So the RE at the end is coming from real estate.
Okay.
And there are so many different word games that people can play with it. For example, the big cherry is the opposite for big apple, cherry on the top of the cake and stuff like that. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Okay, got it. And so your talk at the conference is around modeling the real estate ecosystem with Cherry's knowledge graph. So wanted to, ask, what does real estate industry have to do with knowledge graphs? How are they related?
Yeah, actually, you know what? They are kind of not. So the real estate industry is very traditional and very old. Investments are being done pretty much, it's a correspondence between two people who decide to sell and to buy. And all the investments are extremely local. So you need to know the location where you want to invest. Once you have invested, the money is going to be out there for decades. So it's very much not liquid. And it just lacks all the characteristics of a normal financial market type of an investment. So we want to change that. And the way we change that is we look at what investors usually do when they invest in real estate. And I am talking about big institutional investors that buy properties for hundreds of millions of dollars. And what they do is they get enough information, a lot of data about specific properties that they want to buy. And they have quite a lot of macroeconomic characteristics of the markets and asset classes. So it's very high level, very coarse grain. There is no layer in between, and they really need it. What they need is they need to know what's going on around the property that they want to buy, both in terms of the locality, just geography, and in terms of who the owners are, why they're selling, how much they want to go down in price and stuff like that. So once we build the knowledge graph of the entire ecosystem, we're actually connecting all these things together. So a property is going to be connected to an owner, and owner is going to be connected to a different property that they own. All this is within the locality of the geography that the investments are going to be made. And this allows investors to see the whole picture, both the 30,000 feet view of what's going on and the very much down the ground, what is going on with your particular property, your asset class, or your specific portfolio that you have already. So that's what we have right now. We have properties and addresses and people and governmental organizations and companies in our knowledge graph. We have about 500 million nodes in our knowledge graph, about 1.5 billion edges. And this is the model of the entire ecosystem. So it's everything that you can see in the United States of America. And this is a fairly big market, right? So we're talking about something like a $100 trillion market. So we built all our analytics on top of it. And yes, that's what Cherry is all about.
Wow, very cool. I mean, I think there's just such a great opportunity right now to disrupt the real estate industry. I think you're right. I mean, they haven't really changed the way they do business for a long time. I used to do a little bit of real estate on the side for fun, so I know a little bit about that space. But a question here. So we have knowledge graphs. We've got real estate knowledge graphs. How do they differ?
Yeah, so there are a few main differences in the real estate knowledge graph. First of all, and the most interesting one, is that the knowledge graph is what's called closed world, meaning that in many knowledge graphs, you need to fill it up with facts that you haven't discovered yet. In the real estate knowledge graph, if there is no connection between two nodes, it essentially means that there is no connection. So we can make inferences not on top of what exists, but also on top of what doesn't exist. So those two companies have never done business together. For example, this is very strong. It's a big luxury to have a knowledge graph like that, because in many other domains, it's just not possible. Another aspect is that the knowledge graph that we have is not scale-free. Scale-free is that every node has many connections, right, neighbors, and some nodes can be extremely well connected. So the distribution goes like the power law, and some nodes that are too well connected make the entire graph very difficult to deal with. Think about Twitter, for example, like, those mega nodes that connect like millions of others that are actually don't really connect to each other. Right. So in our domain, it's not the case, and it's also a very good news for us. So the most well-connected nodes have probably thousands to maybe dozens of thousands of connections, and definitely not millions or billions. So that allows us to spread that network more evenly, and that allows us to make better analytic predictions on top of it.
Great. Well, Ron, thank you so much for giving us a sneak preview of what the, people can expect to hear at the Knowledge Graph conference coming up. Thank you again for your time. And where can people go to learn more about Cherry?
Cherry.com?
Cherry.com. Easy as that. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Kate.
Okay. All right. I'm going to go ahead and bring in the next speaker. I saw we do have some comments and questions flying in on LinkedIn. I think we're going to address them likely towards the end of the session, because I do want to get, all the speakers, give them a chance to give you a little sneak preview. So without further ado, I'm going to bring in Tapajoy Biswas from Yahoo Verizon Media. So Tapajoy, hello.
Hello.
Starting our session. How's it going?
Good. How about you?
Doing very well. We're doing a very, very quick lightning round here of sneak previews of what people can expect to hear from your session. And I know your topic is machine learning in Yahoo's Knowledge Graph. I'd love to hear a bit about what you're going to talk about in the session.
Yeah. So Yahoo Knowledge Graph is a project which is almost around more than 7 years old. We have been building it for in various different parts of the company, and around 5 years back, we got all the different people who are working on knowledge graphs across the company together and formed the Yahoo Knowledge Graph. We kind of have we scale to different domains: entertainment, lifestyle, people, celebrities, finance. Name it. I mean, Yahoo Finance uses our stuff. Yahoo Sports uses our stuff. We crawl open sites. Our knowledge graph is made out of both. Unstructured data and structured data, and we have around 1 billion edges, which we reconcile. So all of these have been formed, and we've powered these properties. Which we call properties that are actually products or brands. Now, machine learning on top of that is basically to help strengthen the knowledge graph, strengthen the edges, form reduce data islands, and also help the end properties do better in terms of their recommendations or searches. So that's what the Yahoo Knowledge Graph powers.
Great. Well, so I'm familiar with data lakes, and I recently learned about data rivers. What are data islands?
So what happens is, let's say you're crawling IMDb, or you're crawling a finance site. They would link among themselves. These pages would link among themselves. And when you crawl them and you form entities out of them, you would have strong edges among these different data entities you have discovered. But how do you cross-pollinate? How do you know the Brad Pitt in Wikipedia is the same Brad Pitt in IMDb? So so we have to form, we have to do all sorts of combinations to find out which entities are similar across two different sites you have crawled, two different domains you have crawled. That's a typical large-scale binary classification machine learning problem we solve day in, day out. So that is one aspect. So the other aspect is two entities. Once they're crawled, there are different ways of connecting them. Like they belong to the same they belong to the same topic being talked about. Let's say coronavirus. Now there are doctors talking about coronavirus. There are financial specialists talking about coronavirus. There are several other institutions, health institutions talking about coronavirus. That brings them together. Now, you can imagine similar in case of sports. There are investors who are interested in sports. There are award functions in sports. There are players, obviously, sports teams. Now, not all of them will be connected. You have to connect them through mining edges, mining information which connects them together, mining that they are of the same topic. So those are, some kind of cross-pollinations we do, and a lot of that is through machine learning.
Got it. All right. Well, thank you so much for giving us a sneak preview of your talk. And you know, if people want to connect with Data, I'm gonna put a link. I'll tell you in the comments so you can go and follow up with
Thank
the
you.
for you. Great.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and bring in the next speaker. I think I see Gavin. Gavin in the room. We got Gavin Mendel-Gleason from TerminusDb. So, Gavin, hello.
Hi there. How's it going?
Going well.
So
How are
yeah,
you?
so very good, very good.
Did I say your company name right?
But it's TerminusDB. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I
That's
said
right.
Terminus. That's not good. TerminusDB, got it. So you're going to be talking about, you're providing an intro to logic knowledge graphs, succinct data structures, delta encoding for modern databases, and web object query language. That's a long title, man.
Yeah, that's very, very. So essentially, what we have is a Git for data and a Git for knowledge graphs. And the way that we have put this together is we used a lot of the ideas that make Git a really effective platform for collaboration. And we noticed in our own problems that we were dealing with that it's necessary to have a lot of the sorts of continuous integration, continuous deployment, things that are available for software design should be available for knowledge graph deployment. And when you're trying to collaborate between lots of people on a project that has complex data, you want to be able to do things like curate the data, merge the data, have branches of the data where you have speculative areas where you might want to extend the data. And so we took this idea and we started running with it. We figured out ways of encoding very large amounts of data in what we call succinct data structures. And these succinct data structures are technically data structures that approach the minimum information theoretic size. And that allows you to get a huge amount of information in a small, compact area in a way that can still be queried. So we have a database. It stores things in what we call deltas, and the deltas are sort of layers, very much like the way that Git stores the diffs between file updates. But the information is still queryable as a database in these succinct data structures. And in order to query that, we use what we call the web object query language, which is a query language that's based on data log, essentially. But its interchange format is in JSON LD, which means that we can easily deploy various different languages to construct the queries in a programmatic way and send them back and forth.
Very interesting. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And can I ask, what is TerminusDB? What do you guys do there?
So what do? We write the database. So we've been building up this database from the ground up ever since we're a spin out from Trinity College Dublin, and we were working on storing data for a very long scale historical research project that had very complex data sets and the ambitious goal of storing information about every society in human history. So the data curation issues were quite significant, and as you can imagine, we had lots of different academics all trying to merge their data in various different ways, and so we needed a sort of schema controlled knowledge graph that could deal with these coordination issues.
Okay, great. So yeah, basically, so you're built a Git for data. I think that's very easy to relate to. So thanks for using that terminology. I think most of the audience can relate to that. All right, so Gavin, thank you so much for providing a sneak preview, and I hope people go ahead and join your session at the Knowledge Graph conference next month.
Great, thank you.
All right, so we're gonna go ahead and bring in the next speaker. If somebody's getting busy with the spinning of the speakers, let me know in the comments below. I'm actually having a great time. So, getting these very, very quick conversations. I'm gonna go ahead and see who is on to go next. I see Meli Anamalai is here from Oracle. So Meli, I'm going to go ahead and bring you into the stream. Hello.
Hi. That was a great pronunciation of my name, by the way. I'm impressed.
Oh, okay. Thank you. I was pretty sure I was messing that up. So thank you so much. And I see you've got Elmo in the background, which is great because
we can all smile, I guess, at this time. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Anything to cheer people up. So we are doing these lightning rounds, and I know your topic is user graph analytics in enterprise applications. Can you tell people a little bit more about what you're going to talk about at the conference.
Right. So it's been very interesting for me. I've been listening to the earlier speakers, and I've been hearing what they talk about, how they talk about this technology, right? And these are people who see the power of the technology, and they really believe in it, and we believe in it too, and we think it's very powerful technology for doing a bunch of things. So the question that we always ask, because we are a company that sells software to enterprises, we always ask, why has there been a hurdle? Like, why? I think earlier someone was mentioning that it started off semantic web, linked data, now knowledge graphs. It's been around for several years. Why is there not why is it not more widely adopted than it is now? Why do knowledge graph conferences see people in the hundreds and not in the thousands?
Right.
So that's a question we're interested in, and that we've looked at that. We're trying to understand that. And that's what we are, just to briefly touch upon a couple of points, is the concept itself is simple once you get it, but to get the concept can be a hurdle. I mean, you have to invest some time to understand the concepts, understand the technology. There's some complexity in it. And enterprises are dealing with so many different things that developers are kind of need to do like a whole zillion things, and they don't necessarily have the time to invest. They don't have time to take a 1-week course on this and orient their minds towards that. So that's been some of the challenges. So I want to kind of talk about how our marquee customers have tried to address these challenges and how we help customers address these challenges.
Okay, great. Yeah, I think that's going to be very relevant and a very interesting conversation. So thank you so much, Melly, for providing a little glimpse into the gold that you're going to be giving out at the conference.
And yes, and I must say that having this promotional event is great, because if I was not speaking, I would be very interested in attending, just looking at all of the content the speakers are talking about. I mean, it really brings to the fore the power of knowledge graphs. And I hope to be able to talk about what is necessary to do that. Or for example, you don't want to have silos, you want to have tools that you're familiar with, and you want to have languages that you're familiar with. And I think these are things that will help adoption.
Right. So you're going to actually address how do you get over some of the challenges and obstacles, right?
Right. What we do as a company and what some strategies customers have taken on to do this. And it's different in different regions. We see that, like, for example, educational institutions in some parts of the world have invested in training. So students graduate with a degree in computer science and with a good understanding of knowledge graphs. But that is not the case everywhere. And enterprises function everywhere. They hire from everywhere. So we, as an enterprise software company, have to be able to make it easy for anybody to use the technology. And that's kind of our goal. And I hope to touch upon that during my session.
Yes. I think, like I said, I think it's very relevant. There are so many challenges and different ways that the developers are being pulled into. So anything you can do to help them is obviously great. So.
Right.
All right. Well, thank you again for joining. Thank you for your time, and I will tag you on LinkedIn, so if people have questions and want to continue the dialogue, they'll know who to go to.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Great. Thank you so much. All right. I'm going to go ahead and bring in our next speaker. We're going to go with Michael Grove. So, Mike, I think I see you in there. I'm going to go ahead and bring you into the stream. Hello.
Hi. How you doing?
Great. I can see you. I can hear you. So this is great. Thank you. Thank you for joining. And which company are you joining with, or?
I'm founder of Stardog.
Stardog. Yes, got it. Yeah. So I didn't have that noted. So thank you for that. And your talk is insufficient facts always invite danger. Combat them with logical model. I love that. Tell us what that's all about.
So the idea is, we're all obviously enthusiasts about knowledge graphs here. And the key point of knowledge graphs is the knowledge piece. And I think that gets overlooked a lot of times, where people focus on using legacy technology or throwing data into a big pile. But leveraging that knowledge is really what all the digital transformation, data-driven excitement is all about. So I think the most effective way to do that, how you actually get knowledge in a knowledge graph, is through the use of a logical model.
And so Stardog, what do you guys do? I am not as familiar with Stardog.
I'm biased, but I would claim we're purveyors of the world's finest enterprise knowledge graph platform.
Of course you are.
So some of the biggest companies in the world, from Dow Jones to Bosch to Cisco, eBay, all run our platform in production, powering their knowledge graphs to help them bring together data at enterprise scale and help them power kind of their next generation data-driven initiatives.
Mm-hmm. Great. And so, after people attend your session at the Knowledge Graph conference, which is online, by the way, in case people are asking where that's going to be located, what's the biggest takeaway that they'll leave after hearing your session?
I'm hoping people will walk away, understanding, where the knowledge in a knowledge graph comes from, why a logical model is kind of fundamental to supporting that, and why it's not something you should be afraid of. This kind of part of the puzzle typically will get, people will run away from it and be a little scared because it's new or it's a different tack, and I'm gonna hopefully explain it in about 3 minutes and give you everything you would ever need to know about how to do modeling correctly to really empower a knowledge graph, within the enterprise context.
I think that's super useful. I mean, even myself, I wasn't really familiar with knowledge graphs. Probably about 12 months ago is when I first really started digging into it. And they do sound and look slightly intimidating. I mean, if you look at a knowledge graph, it has like so many parts and you're like, oh no, how does this build? So if you can remove some of that intimidating factor and break it down for people, I think that's really great.
Well, that's the hope. I think it all kind of boils down, to a single equation: data and context is knowledge. And a lot of our existing technology is focused on the data piece, but where does that context come from? And it comes most capably from using a logical model. And knowledge is really what enterprises are trying to leverage. That's when people say data is the new gold or the new oil, they really mean knowledge.
Right. Yeah. I have a few friends who absolutely love that statement of data is the new oil. I wonder if they're on right now, they're probably cracking up. So thank you. Last question is, where can people go to learn more about Stardog?
Very easy. It's just stardog.com. We have a lot of resources for helping people understand what knowledge graphs are, how they're being used in the real world, tutorials to get you started, easy ways to sign up and use our software to, build your own knowledge graph.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. Well, thank you again for providing the sneak preview, and I hope people will go on and join your session and get the most out of that. So thank you, and I'm going to go ahead and bring in the next speaker. All right.
Thank you.
All righty. I have not yet lost my voice, so I'm going to go ahead and let's bring in David Kamian. So David, welcome to the stream. Nice to meet you. Hello.
Hi, Kate.
How are you doing on this fine afternoon?
Good. I'm surprised you still have a voice.
I stole my kids' apple juice, so I have something to drink during the session. And you guys are doing great by talking. It allows me to talk a little bit less. But why don't you tell us a little bit about Mind Alliance's systems, where you are the CEO?
Sure. Mind Alliance builds knowledge graph powered applications for law firms. Law firms are pretty late to the game. I would say a decade easily behind investment banks and hedge funds. So we're, I think, pioneering the application of knowledge graph technology in the law firm space. And I'll be talking about a bunch of use cases that make sense for a law firm. They probably make sense for other businesses like consulting firms and investment banks and anywhere where the essence of the interaction between the company and its clients is knowledge, producing knowledge. We figured out about, I don't know, a year or two ago that the best place for us to focus as a business is the business development and marketing space within a law firm. Right. The research departments have a lot of data, but they only have graphical user interface, GUI-based access, so they don't have API access. They have relatively low levels of sophistication, and they don't have that much budget to spend on doing new things. They can swap out, LexisNexis for Westlaw, or one subscription for another subscription. But when it comes to actually building a knowledge graph, they're not the partner to get it done in a law firm. The IT department is often not really the partner either. You have to work with them, but the money and the motivation in a law firm is with the marketing and business development people that's on the hook to help the lawyers win new business. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And I know your talk is how knowledge graphs will help law firms win business and serve clients better. So are you going to provide, is this a technical talk, or are you high level, explaining to folks how you can leverage knowledge graphs in the business development and marketing departments of law firms?
So I think it's going to be a bit of a hybrid. On the one hand, I want to provide some very concrete use cases that if by chance there are law firm people or corporate legal department people in the audience, they'll perhaps, these particular use cases will resonate with them. Of course, there's, there are many other use cases that we can talk about. I'll briefly outline those use cases. One would be opportunity spotting. That means a law firm's effort to spot typically a company that needs legal help. Why? There could be some new regulation coming out. There could be some litigation. There could be a trend that consumers are going to start suing. There might be a class action suit. So there could be something in litigation. There could be some regulatory trend. There could be your client is entering a new country, and you better know about it because they're going to need legal help to enter that new country or to launch a new product. So that's opportunity spotting. Another use case is matching, helping lawyers, and it's not just lawyers, it's lawyers plus the marketing and BD people who support them, helping lawyers write higher value thought leadership. So imagine you're typing a piece of thought leadership. Like it could be long, it could be relatively short. It's like, let's say a client alert. So right now, if you're a lawyer, your time is literally money. You don't really want to spend your time writing marketing material, even though your marketing department is, pushing you to do that. If you're gonna finally make the time to write a piece of thought leadership, you had better make it good. Like it needs to be worth reading. And frankly, a lot of this stuff no one reads. Yeah. Interestingly, in the last few weeks, we've created a COVID-19 thought leadership knowledge hub. So we aggregated the thought leadership from 200 plus law firms. So this way, when you're writing a new piece of thought leadership, take the time to see whether someone else has already said exactly what you're going to say. So this is just an illustration of the general case of, with a knowledge graph powered application, you could have someone doing one thing in one part of the interface, and you could programmatically match that to other things that they should be reading in order to write something really good. It could be background information. It could be matching the content to people in your law firm that you should kind of bring into the discussion and help you write it. It could be, all industry background about, the regulations that you're writing about. So the moment, obviously this is not just a knowledge graph thing, it's also a natural language processing thing. The moment the system recognizes the name of a law or the name of a government ministry or the name of a type of visa that you typed, it could show you the relevant stuff right there on the side. So that's another use case. And then the last use case, if we even get to 3, will be staffing projects and cross-selling. So law firms are divided up into practice groups. They're also divided into offices. Remember offices?
Back in the day. I remember those.
So in a global law firm, it's very, with hundreds or thousands of lawyers, it's very, and with new lawyers coming on and leaving, it's very common to not know that there's a lawyer, in your office in New York who is an expert in AI, who has worked on this kind of a deal, and so on, right? So again, with the help of a knowledge graph that makes it, semantically explicit connections between things, you can do much more interesting and useful matching between a project, in the legal domain, they call it a matter, but also sometimes a project, and a lawyer who has the right skills, and so on. So that is another sort of application area or use case area. Those are the three that we'll focus on. And if the audience wants to, we can also try and talk about the challenges of educating an industry that's new to the knowledge management game, about how do you get them interested and how do you get started.
Awesome. Well, David, thank you so much. I mean, this is very interesting for me. My husband works for a law firm, so I wasn't really aware of how knowledge graphs would be applicable to them. So this is really helpful. I hope people go ahead and check out your session at the Knowledge Graph Conference. I'm going to go ahead and thank you for your time and introduce the next speaker at this point. So thank you.
All the best. Sure.
All right. Okie dokie. So we are going to move on to Mr. Giovanni Tummarello. I'm going to bring you into the session. Hello, Giovanni.
Hey. Hello. Hi, Kate. Thank
Hi,
you for,
how are you doing today?
not too bad, not too bad. Thank you for having me. Yeah, so it's I'd like to give a quick introduction to the topic of the seminar, the tutorial that I'm going to be giving at the conference. So I'm a founder and chief product officer at Siren.io. Siren is basically a software for data analysis and data visualization, but it's very, very much a knowledge graph visualization exploration software. So it's something that's deeply rooted in knowledge graph, even though you might not look at it at the beginning. So I think it's quite interesting. It's a very interesting software to play around with, and it's relatively unusual. So I'd be looking forward also to see what people think of it. And in this tutorial, I'm going to be basically taking the community edition of the software. So everybody that joins can simply download the community edition. We're going to make it very easy for people to have it available also on Amazon. So if they don't want to download on their own computer, they should be able to just spin it up on Amazon. And then we're going to play with data. We're going to have some CSVs. We're going to upload them. And at the beginning, it looked pretty much like a business intelligence software. So the fascinating thing about the software is the fusion of different paradigms. So you can see it as a business intelligence software where you're going to have your dashboard with your pie chart and histograms and your tables, your analytic table. So at the beginning, going to start like that, because when you're getting a list of companies, right, you don't want to see them as a knowledge graph visualization at the beginning. The first thing you want to see is, what kind of companies are there? How many employees do they have? Give me a map where they are, right? So that's kind of what you're interested in. Mm-hmm. And so that's what you get at the beginning. But then as you evolve and you continue, we're going to put like investments and investors and show that at that point you are interested in seeing it as a graph because you want to see who got the money from who. So in other words, it evolves from being business intelligence to be more a knowledge graph. And there are certain answers, certain questions that you can answer much better on a business intelligence software, certain questions that you can answer much better on a graph visualization. So you need the power of the knowledge graph. And that's, I think, it's the innovation that we bring to the table, is to blend these paradigms together of knowledge graph, link analysis, time series analytics, content analytics, so even text, even being able to analyze the articles that talk about those companies. What do they say? What topics do those articles talk about? Are they positive or negative in sentiment or things like that? So that's what it is. I think it's going to be quite interesting for people joining to learn about the tool and use it, and to get maybe a new perspective on knowledge graph. Like sometimes people associate the concept of knowledge graph necessarily to graph databases, while in reality it's more in the data than it is in the backend in the database.
Yeah, absolutely. It sounds very interesting. I mean, I'm very focused on data visualization and business intelligence. I've actually shared the link to Siren.io in the chat where people can ask comments and questions. You mentioned a community version. How do people go in and download, and basically, is there like a demo version people can play with?
Yeah, it's a fully functional version, so we have a lot of people using it actually. So you can just go on Siren.io and download it. It's free, and it works. It has some limitations, of course, but within those limitations, you can do what you want. I mean, you can load 1 billion records into the free edition, and it works.
1 billion?
So it's
That's
like
a lot of
you
records.
have 30 gigabytes of CSV and just drag and drop into the browser, it goes up. So it's that scalable, even the free edition, yeah. And that's what we're going to be using.
Okay, amazing. Well, thank you so much for sharing your sneak preview. And if people want to learn more, obviously can go on to siren.io. And thank you for your time, Giovanni.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right. Okie dokie. I'm going to go ahead and bring in our next speaker, Qinghua Chen from IBM Research. Hello, Qinghua. How's it going? Oh, you're on mute.
Now everything is good. Thank you.
Now everything is good. Hello.
Yes.
Welcome to the live show.
Yeah, I've been joining in since 1 o'clock, so
okay, so you've
very
been
interesting.
Watching.
Yes.
I know we're. Oh, you just reminded me to look at the time. I know we're at time. We do have a couple of speakers left, so hopefully people will stick around for this session. And I know your topic is personal health and knowledge graphs, challenges and opportunities. So what can people expect to hear from your session?
Right. So this workshop is going to be about personal health knowledge graphs. And really the problem that we're trying to address is the fact that we already know that where people live, work, and what their income is and education level can have as much or greater influence on their health as their access to healthcare. Despite this, we're still spending the majority of our healthcare dollars on the provision of medical services, as opposed to trying to alter our environments and our behaviors. So my workshop co-organizers and myself are really excited to be running this workshop because we want to discuss the potential for using personal health knowledge graphs to integrate social determinants of health, idiosyncratic observations of daily living into the patient health records. And by doing this, we hope to enable personalized and explainable insights to support behavior change.
That sounds very interesting, very relevant right now with COVID-19 and people trying to figure out healthcare data.
For sure. Although, our interest in this has been a long time coming and originally to address chronic diseases, which are highly preventable through behavior change, and yet, are currently one of the key drivers of healthcare costs.
Right. So you mentioned this is a panel.
Yeah, so we're going to have 2 panels. The morning panel is going to include Dr. Rita Kukavka from Columbia University. She is also our keynote speaker for the day. She is a professor of social medical sciences and biomedical informatics at Columbia University. And she's been on the front line understanding how health records and health information technologies are actually being used by patients and providers. So we're really excited to hear from her. This first panel will also include Dr. Tina Papousakis, who's a senior director from the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics. So she's going to be able to give us insights specific to how nutrition care is delivered and how we can personalize that. Our third panelist in this session is Dr. Jeffrey Rogers, who is IBM's Global Research Leader for Health Devices and Technologies. He's also the Senior Manager for Cognitive IoT Health Systems at IBM Research. And so we think that the 3 of them together can really give us a sense for the state of the art in practice and in technologies to enable the personal health knowledge graph.
Wow, sounds like a very powerful panel that people should definitely not miss when if they're attending the Knowledge Graph conference.
There's a second panel, so combined with why this is important in the health industry, we are having a second panel that will include our second keynote speaker, Dr. Jim Hendler from Rensselaer Polytechnic, Dr. Ruben Verbeau, who's also a speaker in the main conference, and Dr. Mauro Dragoni. And these guys are better known in this community, and so I won't take the time right now to introduce them in too much detail, but we really want to balance the health use case with the technology side of things so that we can make sure that this community can be a part of contributing to what we hope will be part of the future of personal health records.
Great. Thank you so much. And is there a link that I could provide to the audience, so they can follow the progress that you're doing in this space?
Yes, I will paste that in the chat right away.
Okay, great. Yep, and I'm happy to share that, or you can post it on the LinkedIn Live as well. Up to you. But thank you so much for joining the live stream. I think your session is going to be really interesting. Hope people go ahead and check that out.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Okay, bye. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and bring in our next speaker. I know this is a lot for an hour, so thank you for those who are staying with us for this LinkedIn live stream. I see there are still over 60 people on and coming in and out of the session, so I appreciate the engagement. We will get to your comments and questions towards the end, but I will bring in Pierre Haran into the chat right now. Hello, Pierre.
Hello, Kate. Thanks for your energy.
Thank you for being here, and I'm excited to hear about your work at Causality Link. And I see your talk here is about leveraging a graph of causal forces acting on financial markets. So really excited to hear about your session.
Yeah, thanks, Kate. So we are going to talk about causal graphs, which is an instantiation of graphs and applied to the financial world. And where we're kind of unique is that these graphs are automatically generated using NLP on millions, 84 million articles arriving in real time, and leveraging collective intelligence as opposed to on knowledge, as opposed to collective intelligence on data, which is what people have been doing up to this point. And I really liked what one of your previous authors said, that knowledge is the new oil, and that's what we're leveraging.
Yes, absolutely. And I see here, so your company reads 84 million texts in 18 languages and generates a very large knowledge graph that explains the forces acting on the market. So why 18 languages? I mean, most people in the financial markets, I believe, are familiar with English, so wanted to get your motivation behind that.
Well, so as we have seen recently with the coronavirus, things happen at some place in the world and have an instant impact on many other places. And very often they are reported in the local language, whether it's ESG issues or plants having a problem, and that have a ripple effect across the world. So what we have found is that it is really fascinating to be able to read a global point of view that includes Russian, Chinese, Korean articles, and it truly has opened my mind on how incredible the world is and how much we miss when we're just listening to one language.
Yep, that's a good point. And then I know, so your company's Causality Link. Can you tell a little bit?
It is Causality Link.
Causality Link. I'm sorry. I've been talking for a long time. So
causality is what happens to some right?
Yes, absolutely. So what are you guys focused on mainly?
So we are trying to build, and this is not very modest, but a model of the world. So we have 40,000.
Model of the world, not modest at all. Yeah, of course.
No. So it is very interesting because it works. So basically you have all the public companies in the world, all the countries in the world, and you're trying to establish all these relationships that exist as they are described by authors. So you look at what's happening on oil, for example, so there is a very standard relationship that the more demand, the higher the price, the more supply, and the lower the price, right? And then usually there is a feedback loop, which is that price, if there is a low price, supply will go down. But because we can't turn off the tap of some of these oil, then the supply keeps going, even though the prices keeps going down. So this is fascinating. And this kind of problem happens all over the world across all the KPIs of the different companies, and building a very smart financial research assistant that knows 18 languages, reads everything in real time, and is able to answer questions about chains of causal links that propagate information before the other people have understood it. It's a very useful tool, and it's a very exciting tool.
Yeah, it does sound very, very useful and exciting. And I had a question. So why would a system that's extracted from thousands of authors be smarter than a few really, really great analysts?
Well, First of all, this is the theory of the collective intelligence, right? So that lots of people that are not necessarily extreme experts average on data very precisely, much more precisely than 2 or 3 experts, right? And this has been proven over and over. What we're trying to prove it is the same thing on knowledge. That is, the aggregator knowledge of thousands of authors, and some of them are very smart, is in fact as powerful, if not more powerful, than the knowledge of very specific experts. And on top of that, our assistant is not trying to outsmart people, he's trying to provide a safety net, basically, in knowledge. A knowledge safety net on a very, very complex world.
Got it. Yeah, I think that's a great explanation. And anywhere, where can people go to check out more about the work you're doing?
We have produced a website called coronavirus.causalitylink.com.
Okay, not causality, guys, causality.
Yes, that shows the impact, and we produced that at the beginning of February. That shows the impact of the coronavirus on the different industries, and we just introduced a new version of it that I think will give people a very good idea of what they can achieve with this type of technology.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for hopping on and giving us a sneak preview of your talk.
Thanks, Kate.
All right. Have a good rest of your day.
You too.
Okay. I am now going to bring in Zvi Weitzner from Timber.ai. I see you in there, Zvi, and now you're in the live stream. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Kate.
Hi. Nice to meet you.
Thanks for inviting us. I am Zvi Weitzner. I am Chief Strategy Officer of Timber.ai. And thank you also to Thomas and Francois, who are doing a tremendous job organizing the conference. So why do we need an SQL knowledge graph? This is the question. First, some background. If we take a look at the timeline of the database market, we can see that it took about 20 years for relational databases to reach widespread use, counting from the late 70s when IBM's Jacob invented the SQL. By the early 2000s, when the Semantic Web Initiative was born, relational databases had gained a market share of about 80%. What has happened since then? Companies have developed very clever and powerful solutions that enable connected data and are used for knowledge representation in general. And after 20 years of effort to develop this market, the adoption of these solutions is no more than 8% market share, where relational databases are still close to 80%. So we ask ourselves why? Why haven't the NoSQL solutions grabbed a more significant share of the market? In our view, in Timber's AI's view, the answer to this question is because of the high barriers to entry. The idea of our company, Timber.ai, started exactly because of these barriers that made it very difficult for us to implement semantic technologies in large organizations. So the SQL knowledge graph is our solution to bring knowledge representation from to the SQL world and eliminate these barriers to entry.
Okay, great. Yeah, thank you for sharing. And it's so for your talk, is that what people can expect to hear? Is how do you basically reduce those barriers to entry?
Exactly. We are going to make a demo of the Timber solution, and we are going to show how we implement the semantic web principles in standard SQL as a virtual layer, and we turn any database into knowledge graph.
Got it.
By enabling ontologies in SQL, Timbers delivers the fastest and the easiest implementation of semantic reasoning and knowledge graph features in the market. We are the fastest. No OWL expertise is required. No need to learn new query languages. No need to change backend data stores. No ETL operations, and no retraining of IT personnel. In addition, and very importantly, Timber seamlessly connects to any BI tool, and the ontology is queryable in SQL, Apache Spark, Python, and R. So for large established organizations with big investments in relational infrastructure, Timber is a no-risk solution to integrate big data and silos of information and convert data catalogs and data governance tools into ontologies connected to the data and queryable in standard SQL. And just to finish, as a recent example of how fast and easy it is to implement Timber, it took us only about 2 weeks to implement and start using Israel's COVID-19 knowledge graph that gathers all public available data sources comprising close to 200 tables and modeling an ontology of dozens of concepts that is currently being used by dozens of analysts and data scientists in Israel to generate insights to help fight COVID-19. So thank you very much and see you at the conference.
Yes, all right. Thank you so much, Zvi. Thank you for sharing that. And you mentioned that you built this COVID-19 knowledge graph for Israel. Is that being used currently by the government?
Of course, yes.
Amazing. All right. Well, thank you again for sharing, and I hope people go ahead and check out your speech at the conference.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Bye-bye.
I'm going to go ahead and bring in our next speaker. I've got Marta Lopata, the Chief Growth Officer at KGBase. So, hello, Marta.
Hi, Kate. How are you?
I am doing very well. How are you?
I'm okay. I'm good. Thank you.
I've been checking out people's choice of outfit, and I see you're wearing a knowledge graph.
Yes, it's our knowledge graph based swag, obviously. Yes, I'm wearing it.
Yes, that's perfect. I actually should have worn mine. I have some data-dated shirts. I don't know why I didn't wear that. It's a good idea. So I'd love to hear, what you're doing. I know your talk is the rise of no-code knowledge graphs. Seems very exciting, and love to hear more about it.
Sure. Yeah, so at the Knowledge Graph conference coming up in May, I'll be specifically discussing why we created KGBase and why KGBase is primarily a no-code knowledge graph tool. So to the point of all the previous speakers have made, knowledge graphs have countless amount of applications. So my presentation will be really focusing on how can we make access to knowledge graphs available to all, those that can program and those that can. And my thesis in this presentation and with the software solution we've developed is that allowing to create interfaces where you can use, you can use it without any really knowledge, which is interesting. And you can still come and contribute. And also, if you are writing queries, in custom graph languages, you can also participate. And we're trying to create a platform for these two worlds to collide so that the knowledge graphs can become more and more relevant across many different spectrums. So how we got to it. So originally, I'm also a Chief Growth Officer at ThinkNum. ThinkNum is an alternative web data platform that crawls the web for data sets on over 500,000 companies in real time. And then when we did that, we realized that mapping is such a key problem. And that's where we really started developing all these query systems for analysts that can't write code and for their quant teams to collaborate, right? And we're trying to bring that now to the knowledge graph world, all this feedback and language and product that we've built over the last 5 years with ThinkNum for the finance community and expanded to all industries.
So ThinkNum is targeted for finance, and KGBase is for all industries.
That's correct. Yes.
Okay, very cool. And so the no-code option, why should people care? People in the knowledge graph community, why should they care about the no-code option?
I think if they truly believe in importance and significance of knowledge graph as a format in its own, and I think most of them are definitely on that side, believe that different type of users and audience should be able to interact with the graphs and work on the graphs. So the more we will enable them to work and more we will enable the collaboration between the human and machine to happen on different level, the more we get chances to thrive, and the wider democratization of data we can really bring to the environment. So I think that's just an exciting concept. We built the software for it, so I'm excited to demo it at the Knowledge Graph conference in May.
Great. All right. Well, I hope people go ahead and check that out. It does sound really interesting. And thank you for joining the LinkedIn Live session. I'm going to actually open this up now for questions. So for those who have stuck around, and Martha, feel free to to stick around if you'd like. I'm just going to basically be reading through LinkedIn comments and questions. And I'm going to add Thomas back in. Let's see, we got Francois. We've got Mike Grove stuck around. So I'm going to, Martha, definitely feel free to stick around to see if there are any comments and questions on LinkedIn. I've been trying to monitor the comments as I went along, but it was a little bit difficult of managing that whole process. But those who tuned in live, thank you so much. It was great to see your engagement, and we're finally getting down to questions. I think there was a question from Mike Bennett about, what is a knowledge graph? And I know we addressed it early on, but maybe somebody who's on right now can do a quick recap of what is a knowledge graph.
Yeah, and Mike, I need to apologize to Mike because he had a hard time logging into this live, and I'm glad you managed to log in, Mike. That was your first question, I think, to me, Kate, or one of your first questions, and I really try to avoid it because it's the question you do not want to answer in 20 seconds. There are a lot of different definitions. I think there's an idea around what are the capabilities, what is it. It's everyone agrees that the core, the central power of knowledge graphs is the integration, the integration power for all these heterogeneous sources of data that can be put together. So I think that's really the source. From that, there are a lot of varying explanation about if they need to use a certain technique, if a certain modeling language or a certain sort of way of storing and querying that data needs to be used or not. Is that related to the web? Is it related to an organization? We've heard the names like closed knowledge graph and open knowledge graph. And so all those things are things we are going to discuss at the conference. And I think that's the best way is not to hurry too fast to get put a hard definition on what a technology means. I think you want to leave it open and have a consensus being created as the technology emerge. And so that's also why we're doing the conference. It is to bring everyone together, all the experts, the practitioners, the researchers, students as well, and developers. So everyone can chime in, and from that a consensus can emerge, and it will be a good thing for the technology.
Great, thank you. And we have a lot of very positive feedback that Yuri says it was a super interesting KGC preview. And we got a comment here from Alan Morrison that says, of course, there are different kinds of knowledge graphs, like you mentioned, right? One answer focuses on the standards-based variety, the kind that can scale and link to other graphs globally. So there's definitely a discussion on what is a knowledge graph in the comments. So Francois, Thomas, do you want to remind people where to go to sign up for the conference, and what else can they expect to see there? Thomas, you're on mute if you're trying to talk.
Okay. Yeah, great. So knowledgegraph.tech. Just to recap, 4 days, May the 4th to the 7th. 2 days workshops, tutorials, personal help knowledge graphs for social good. If you're curious about the space and interested in learning how to build a knowledge graph, we have 2 tutorials on that topic. The conference itself, 2 days of lightning talks, 30 talks, and lots of interaction through the digital platform, through video with our speakers. We'll be supporting speaker channels and Ask Me Anything sessions. The startup event, the Enterprise Knowledge Graph Open Source Foundation, the panel on new frontiers in data intelligence. So sign up in the link in the channel, and a 10% discount for anyone who uses this code. And thanks, Kate. That was a fantastic event. And I think it replicates the energy of our conference very well. It's like very rapid, fast-paced, get to the point. So looking forward to seeing everyone at the beginning of May.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, guys. And thank you to all the speakers that participated. Thanks for the participants in the LinkedIn Live. And just a quick reminder, the code is KGC LinkedIn Live if you want to get 10% off the session. Thanks, everybody. Have a good rest of your day.
Bye-bye.
Bye. All right.